Hi there. This is the third and final part of my review for Lord of the Rings of Power, Episode 3. This final section is on the Harfoots, which is pretty much separated from all the other ones in this. That the Southlands sort of connects to Halbrand and the Rise of Sauron stuff. First episode, they give passing mention, well, maybe there's trouble in the South. The Harfoot storyline is pretty separate from all the other ones, so I made it its own separate thing here. As I said at the end of last video, which I said, oh, I'm keeping it short because I'm going by storyline. Originally, I was going to pair the Harfoots and the Southlands things from episode 3 because I liked them both. Then I realized, well, it kind of makes more sense to put that at the end of the Numenor one because it relates to Sauron and things and elves. So, whereas the last one ran 40 minutes. It was supposed to be two 20-minute videos. I put everything up from the Southlands in the Numenor one. That's why it's over 30 minutes. This is actually really short because I really liked it, and there's not much more to say lore-wise. That inventing things in and of itself isn't bad. That these are all invented storylines. The broad strokes are one page in the prologue that Tolkien said that, well, the ancient proto-hobbits like the Harfoots, or one of the three tribes, they were migrating from the east, and because they're really small and can't fight, they've learned to hide. They took that and just developed it. It doesn't contradict anything in the books. In broad strokes, this is probably what happened in the books. I've talked about this in the stuff of the first two episodes. And they just worked it out really well. The time and effort went into this. That we feared that the ancient Hobbit stuff would be, back in October when they said there will be ancient Hobbits in it, we were worried this would be pandering. This is actually pretty good writing, relative to itself. That this was the first episode where I outright enjoyed watching the Harfoot storyline. Because it wasn't all just Saturday morning cartoon show cute stuff, but at times it was tragic that they felt like fully realized characters in this because they have this whole scene where they read off a memorial to all their dead that they lost on their migration, and it rounds them out as characters. That was my biggest concern. Everyone's biggest concern is that this would be, fan service pandering, and it wasn't. That they had depth to these characters. That Nori's friend Poppy Proudfoot, well, why is she always the nervous, cautious one? Because her entire family died in a rock slide. The mountain trail got washed out by a landslide. And just when they read off this entire family list of names, not just one person. And that Sadok, the Lenny Henry's character, the elder trailsman, Sadok Burrows, that there's a point where he reads off a name, which is, I think, his wife, maybe his daughter, that Lenny Henry is a great actor, and they've actually given depth to his character. He's this curmudgeonly elder, but he's not this needlessly strict guy. He's a reasonable authority figure, as they say, that he has these strict rules about to survive because we cannot fight. We are bad at it. That if anyone is too badly hurt, we leave them behind so the group can survive. This is about our survival. That's the harsh reality of the situation there, and he's trying to keep everyone alive, and it's not some abstraction to him that he has lost people because of this. Just reads off a name, great acting, slowly, Lenny Henry's clearly pained, reading off this other Burrows taken by wolves. That this is the point where the Harfoots really got interesting, when you see them reading off everyone who died. And then there's moments of bathos where they can't help but chuckle at the noodle incident. The guys, as they say in TV tropes, the noodle incident of they reads off a name and goes, cause of death, bees. We just left to imagine how he died, like going after a big bee nest or something. We loved him, but he was an idiot. Then they're mixing it back, and there's tragedy, and then there's almost tragic comedy, and they're trying to laugh through it. This felt really, felt real. They felt like they had depth to these characters, and it wasn't the stereotype that I was afraid they would be, with just happy, jokey stuff all the time. That there was development there. That was really good. And it worked with, this is the reality of their situation. They're in a dangerous migration, and semi-permanent habitation. They plop down if there's good field somewhere, but as soon as there's danger or there's a crop failure, they pull up stakes and drive a caravan somewhere else. That was good. I was really impressed. The acting, the writing, the adding depth to the Harfoots. The Stranger stuff was relatively short, more just the consequences of that, again, with Sadok, that he isn't this needlessly strict guy. He goes, well, we'll be lenient. Now, Nori is young. She doesn't have a lot of wisdom. The young make stupid mistakes. I'll be lenient and just take the rear guard back position at the very end of the caravan, which is still dangerous. That's where the wolves are nipping at their heels. They're probably setting up a wolf attack. We've seen glimpses of them circling the camp, but I still consider that reasonable. That the other elders were insisting on exile, and he said, no, we'll just punish her. We won't kick her out. We'll punish her by making her take the dangerous rear guard position for the next trip. That's reasonable. So he felt like a character. I mean, a fully realized character. So did all the other Harfoots. I really liked them. That a lot of people have been avoiding watching this show because of the premieres, and rightly so. There are problems in some of the other storylines, but I'd be interested, because this is a big point of this video. I'd be really interested if someone who had been avoiding watching this, you put together a supercut of the Harfoots in the first 3 episodes, which you could because their storyline is separated from all the other ones. If you just showed them a supercut of this, it's a pretty decent show. For something with no source material other than a vague outline while they were migrating, and a lot of original characters. They talk like normal people also, because the elves talk like Vulcans, of course. That they're doing that on purpose. It's not because they're bad writing. It is a choice that they don't talk naturalistically. But in terms of the dialogue, was fitting for them. They felt like real characters. I like Nori's thing of, no, I don't think I'm special, but I think he's special and want to help him. And that fundamental Tolkien's big thing that, no, everyone is important, everyone can do something, and the small good things that we do matter, through his Catholic faith and everything. The good Samaritan, that the hobbits aren't powerful warriors, but they're good and would help someone who is hurt and in need. That Nori's thing, that whole thing of, I helped him and now he will help us because I paid it forward. It's simple, but it's a trope for a reason. That you help other people and later they will help you. So all of that was good. It really felt like that. Second point here briefly is just expanding that they worked out all the details for the Harfoots as a culture, even though there's nothing in the books that they feel like, if the comparison I could be using is some Proto-Indo-European tribe in the plains of Asia or something 10,000 years ago. Not even Proto-Indo-European, like before that split. That's why they're a mix of different races. They're just, Clan of the Cave Bear times. And if you've only seen the movie, Clan of the Cave Bear starts with her with the Neanderthals. By the later books, she's with Cro-Magnons, with Proto-Homo sapiens who have, art and culture and, semi-permanent homes and things. Just realistically, what was, biologically modern humans have been around for 100,000 years or more. Simple Neolithic cultures who were still pretty developed. What were they like 50,000 years ago? That it felt like a culture. Starting with the first episode, they work out, this is what their whole town, their whole caravan is like, how they have camouflage nets, how they have hollow logs to hide their livestock, and that they work that out visually. And in this one, working out that some people thought the promo stills for this looked stupid, but I could tell they must be dressed up for a harvest festival or something a month ago before the show started, because they were all dressed elaborately. And that's what it was. It was their harvest festival before they pick up stakes and leave. And I like to, again, a simple but society that has some basic nuggets of wisdom as you would for a kindergartner, don't wander off alone. Always use the buddy system. The whole thing, everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten. Some people say about be nice to others, help a stranger in need. Well, that's what Nori does, but I like it that when he's chanting, it's as you would for a simple society, just to get the basic rules in of stay on the trail, don't walk alone. Tell me in the comments, think about it. Imagine what simple but good advice that is for like a horror movie. Every time you're seeing a horror movie, you're going, no, you're shouting at the screen in the theater, don't wander off alone, you idiot. No, don't go off of the road to investigate a noise. So that was, it impressed me with its, yeah, this is simple stuff that for simple folk that would nonetheless elegant in its simplicity to keep them alive. But the biggest thing was that memorial scene of that life is hard for them, but they make it a point to they have to leave people behind sometimes. Some people were really yelling about that in the comments. I thought it was tragic. I thought it was a good element to work in, and it's not that they're careless. I mean, even the elder is on the verge of crying over it, and they're all commiserating. They're all on the same page there. Sometimes when we migrate to keep us all alive, so the wolves don't get us, we have to leave badly injured people behind because they'd slow the group down, and we can't hold a position. Like, if raiders come, they can't defend anyone. They will die. They have no warriors. Staying behind would get everyone killed. And so that they work that out, but the beauty of that, they have a memorial service to emphasize this was a sacrifice. The least we could do is wait for them we couldn't wait for them in life, we can wait for them in our hearts. And that's another thing with Tolkien, that he has this whole thing that religion is in the story, but no culture has temples and churches. Like the Shire hobbits, even Gondor, that just, he said that there aren't temples if you pay attention. And when I asked, Tolkien would explain, well, they believe in God, they believe in Eru, and the archangels who are kind of saints like Elbereth, Varda, Alway, but they don't have temples in the sense that, like, well, did Noah have a temple? Did Abraham build a permanent temple? It's like, he said this whole thing about religion is emphasized by their lives. It's a whole thing with Tolkien that they are characters in a religious story, so they don't need a temple, but they think of it. They have holidays. The hobbits have holidays in the Shire. Like, Yule is kind of a religious holiday, but it's non-denominational. But the only temples you really hear about are like Sauron's temples to Morgoth with human sacrifice and stuff. And sacrificing the first fruit, offering the first fruits to Eru. The Númenóreans have this holy shrine at the top of the mountain in the middle of their kingdom, Meneltarma, where they offer up the first fruits to Eru, but it's not really a temple, and it's literally once a year. It's not a church thing, but that's Tolkien, a quirk of his world, that this isn't religious, but they're having a harvest festival. Harvest festivals in real cultures are often tinged with religion, so it's unstated that this is a harvest and a memorial. I mean, it's a secular memorial, technically, but any memorial is tinged with religion, I guess. I don't know, but working out they have a culture, even though you don't see them having their own pantheon of Harfoot gods. That does lead to a question of whether they know about the Valar or not, because it gets distorted out in the East. But I really liked the self-contained within episode 3, and I didn't have any problems with them in the first 2 episodes. That was good, and this built on it. I have yet to see anything bad in the Harfoot storyline, and it'll be interesting to show this as a supercut. Now, we have 5 more episodes to go. Something stupid could happen, but it's like I'm watching a separate show from the other ones. And as I said, like, some of these other shows are good. The Elrond show with the dwarves was good. Like, the Southlands with the orcs was good. This was a different, also good show due to its... And this came up like in Game of Thrones, where the Daenerys storyline in, like, Season 1 was in a different continent, barely related to the other one. They send letters back and forth and send assassins. But I remember, like, the cast members from the King's Landing storylines would be really excited on the commentary tracks for the DVD when they saw the Daenerys stuff, because they said, this was a totally separate show from us. They filmed in different locations. We never met anyone from this, and this is the first time we're seeing it. It's like we're watching it new along with the audience. So it'll be interesting in the commentary tracks for Rings of Power, like, what cast members from, like, the Harfoot storyline think of the other storylines and vice versa, because they're geographically separated. But I really like the Harfoots in this. Lenny Henry is great. It was good writing for him. I mean, you look at the dialogue and stuff for, like, Halbrand and the Númenor stuff I had problems with. And then you look at this, it's fitting dialogue, well acted. I mean, it's not high stakes, but if you're into hobbits, it's good. I like the detail that went into their culture. I like they expanded on them, and that they're not just caricatures, but have, bad things have happened to them. They're in this dangerous migration. And of course, we all smile at that point where, and the delivery too, where they goes, "Well, he was a falling star and he turned into a person. Have you ever heard of anything like that?" And as the wise elder who knows tales, Sadak goes, "Well, I've heard of a being turning into a star, but not the other way around." Because that's what happened with Elrond's father, Yarendil, that he has a Silmaril, and long story short, he turned into the Evening Star in his flying ship. But that was a reference to that, and some people pointed out, how would the Harfoots know about that? Well, I think Yarendil happened like 2 or 3 thousand years before this, at the end of the First Age. That like knowledge would in folk tales would filter out far into the east past Rune. So distorted tales of this have probably spread somewhere. So he may have heard tale of it because it was over 1,000 years ago. News spreads. So that was all great. Last thing that they clarified was, and this is my only nitpick, is, oh, Marigold is that Nori's father Largo, his wife Marigold is black, and why isn't she mixed race? And he explains, she's my second wife. My first wife Rose died, and I remarried. She's Nori's stepmother. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, okay, that's why they don't look like each other. And logically, they say um, there's been this mix of tribes that came together in mutual defense for this migration, and they've been migrating for a couple of generations by this point. So yeah, some of them would intermarry just other people in the group that they know. Again, this is my only minor nitpick, and it goes on other storylines. If you're going to race swap people, put in like one line explaining, oh, I'm from one of the southern dwarf clans, because there are dwarf clans we never see on screen. But with the Harfoots, very specifically, it was this interview that Sadok's actor Lenny Henry gave back in October. This is the first we learned that they're doing that, and he said, well, the idea is that there's different tribes who came together wherever their original homeland was, who banded together for a migration. And, oh, okay, that works, because again, this is like, compared to the Shire, this is like 5,000 years before the Shire, 4,000 years. This is like going back to Clan of the Cave Bear times with like Homo sapien tribes migrating around the steppes of Asia. This is before recorded history. So that, okay, there'd be different tribes going back that far in the Ice Age or something, that they haven't split off yet. That worked for me. But Lenny Henry gave a one-sentence good explanation in an interview months ago. I wish they'd just repeat verbatim the one-line explanation he gave in dialogue in the episodes of, wait, why do some of you look different? Oh, well, we were different tribes who came together for a migration. Oh, okay. Maybe that'll happen in the next 5 episodes. Just, if you're willing to say it in an interview, you should say it in a TV show. And for these other things, it's kind of implied. Like, the dwarves, it's implied that they're clans. This is the one point where we had an actor actually give an explanation, and it was a good explanation. There's different tribes. I wish they'd say that in dialogue, and maybe it will come up later. But that's just a nitpick, and like they could say it next episodes, and I'm fine with that. They already told about it in an interview. This was the first episode officially where I felt emotionally attached to these characters. Like, I'm already attached to Galadriel and Elrond, and even the dwarves, because we like the dwarves. That the Harfoots are kind of an invented set of people. I'm not quite there with the Southlands are pleasant, but this is, I will watch the rest of this series to see what happens to these Harfoot characters. I'm emotionally invested in them, that they're suffering, that they've suffered hardships, and I like them. And they feel like people. Real characters now, all of them. So this was the point where I came around to the Harfoot storyline, but that's one of 3 major branches of this story. Then you got the Southlands, well, then branches off between Galadriel and Elrond, and the Halbrand stuff is not good. But I really like the Harfoot stuff in this, so I'm behind, I'm racing this off. Oh, crud, I'm almost 20 minutes on this. If I had more time to script this out, it would be shorter, you understand. I'm rambling this off because I'm juggling this with House of the Dragon reviews, that when you have more time to prepare, you can make a more succinct review. But this is the end of my review for episode 3. It is Friday. Episode just in time for episode 4, which came out, it's almost dinner time where I am, so I'm going to watch it with dinner along with the rest of you and hopefully have it out by the end of Friday night, at which point I will be caught up with this show and at the halfway point. Thanks for sticking around. Again, I don't think this season will be great or even good. It needs to be serviceable because it is a difficult adaptation. There isn't a lot of source material. And I admit, it is rough around the edges. I'm not saying all of it is good. I have problems with the other storylines. If Harfoots alone was the only show, like as a web original, this would be nice. This would be a show unto itself, as a short thing, like a series of shorts. All the other stuff, the heavy lifting with I always said condensing Numenor and condensing Sauron. I think Halbrand is probably Sauron. Condensing him into that may have even been necessary given the time compression, but I don't know if it's good. I've heard the dwarves come back next episodes, and I really like them, so we'll see what happens with that. But there have been shows that were only kind of halfway there in their first season, and then got really good the second season when they refined all the things that were a little rough. Then again, there have also been shows which had steady declines, and we were saying, no, it's still good, it's still good. Like, I was one of the people making excuses early on when Game of Thrones was slowly diverging from the books, even in Season 5, when we were in such shock when they abandoned them. I went, this can't be real, they must be doing something else. Or Season 2, when they changed Robb Stark's story, I was in denial, and I've been in denial on other shows like Lost, Battlestar Galactica, Heroes, where, no, next season will be better. But this is officially a difficult adaptation, and having seen interviews, the big thing is, I got the sense that McKay and Payne, the new showrunners, I got the sense that they're trying. That this is hard to adapt. I don't envy them for this. Some of the original stuff, like the Harfoots, is actually really good. It's when you because it's all on their own merits. When we have to incorporate and condense stuff Tolkien already did, and it's a balancing act, that's really hard compared to make a decent original storyline. So I'm on the fence. If people going, oh, you're blindly hating it, or oh, you're blindly making excuses, I don't expect Season 1 to be good. If the next 5 episodes are about the quality level we saw of the first 3, I say, okay, that's a bit of a rough around the edges, but better than I thought it would be start to this as a foundation for Season 2 to improve on. But we'll see I'm going to report on it even if it's bad, just for the sake of reporting on it. I hate it when people do that. Oh, I hate this thing. Why are you still reporting on it? Well, we report on things we hate all the time to criticize. I mean, I'm criticizing the Halbrand stuff. And some of the Galadriel thing was it depended on what the scene. Some of her scenes were bad, others were good last episode, depending on the condensation. But all this depends. So it helps that we know they have a 5-season plan, and they briefly say it's the rise of Numenor, fall of Numenor, war against Sauron and all that, forging of the rings. We'll work that out. But I really liked the Harfoot storyline in isolation. And it's actually kind of short. It'll be fun to see a supercut of just each storyline by the end of Season 1. And like I said, it's not even episode by episode quality. If you're going to go the direction in the Halbrand scenes or the writing in the Halbrand scenes was weird. The Harfoot stuff was in the same episode and it was pretty good. So I'm going to put this out. I didn't pause at any points. I'm not going to edit the audio or anything. I'm just going to shove this out. It is dinner time Friday, and I'm going to sit down and watch episode 4 to be caught up with the rest of you.